Obviously, everyone knows contract changed 2015. December 2015 was the first bid pack we built under the new rules, and there's a new way we dispute pairings. You can go either the, we call it the traditional dispute, or the system chief pilot track, or the fatigue risk management track. Those are how they're listed in the contract. If fatigue is the sole reason for the dispute, it must go into the fatigue risk management track, is how the CBA is written. And we had those first 2 years, I would say we had a lot of issues with disputed pairings. We don't list the disputed pairings as SIG notes if they go to the fatigue track. They're supposed to be looked at scientifically. We don't want people skewing the data on these things. But those first 2 years, we would dispute something. We wouldn't hear back for months, 6 months, 9 months. What are you doing with this? Well, we're collecting data. Well, how long does it take to collect data? Well, it's tough to collect data, and then we have to enter the data into the computer, and then we got to get enough data sets to make a ruling. 2 years into this, I'd had enough, and I know Company SIG has heard enough of my complaints about we're getting nothing back. The company's published 0 on fatigue. The company is selling their fatigue risk management plan to other airlines. And I said, if we don't change course, they go, I don't see us participating in this plan going forward. To their credit, they heard what I was saying. And they said, well, let's put the 4 guys, the FERC, Fatigue Event Review Committee, into a room, have them figure out. And if they stay in that room until they're happy with the outcome. And it worked. Company came out with a number of changes on how they handle disputed pairings. They said that they would review all the pairings before the PSIT got to them, preemptive step, which we've never done before. So Rob's group will look at the pairing set and say, yeah, we don't like this, we don't like this, before we even see the pairings. They said if we don't get the minimum number of data sets, so let's say it goes to data collection, we don't get enough data sets within 3 months, or we're tracking towards that, they'll make a ruling. Which before it was, like I said, it was taking 6 months, 9 months, almost a year to get something back. They didn't publish anything. I'm saying, if you guys do this work on data collection and you say this pairing is okay to fly or it's not okay to fly, you have to publish something to tell the pilots the work we're doing. The pilots are doing the data collection. They need to know what the result of that data collection is. So that was the first time we got a little PDF put up. They were called FERC build parameters of what the planners would use, so they couldn't build, they restrict how they built certain pairings. They just redid that page 3 months ago, and they have a number of restrictions. These restrictions cost the company money, but they did update, and they're doing the work that I believe they should have been doing from the start, but we have pushed them to get this stuff accomplished now. We had the Fatigue Risk Management Quarterly last week. Listen, I've been attending this Fatigue Risk Quarterly for 5-6 years. And I would always be the guy in the room that would be like, yep, well, you're not doing this. I had arguments with Bill McDonald over pilots aren't calling it fatigue. There's a stigma attached to calling it fatigue. He said, no, there's no stigma. There is a stigma. When I first got here, everyone that's been at FedEx has a story about being tired, or I should have called him fatigued. That's experience. Next time, call him fatigued. But 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you called him fatigued, you were almost guaranteed to get an email or have to talk to your manager face-to-face the next day or the following week. They don't do that anymore. All fatigue calls caused an irregularity report. All fatigue calls would cause an irregularity report. That is, let's say, a blemish on your personnel file, and they would never go away. So if you pull somebody and go, yeah, you have 20 irregular reports, you have 10 irregularity reports, why is calling fatigued add an irregularity report? It doesn't make any sense. We got those removed. Changing culture at a corporation is a very difficult thing to do. But I do want pilots to know that I think with what Rob and Pat have accomplished in fatigue, they have changed the culture here. It is not the same as it was when I first got hired here. And they're looking at it in a different way. Part of it too is they are selling their fatigue risk management to other airlines. But at the quarterly, the FAA is there. We're there. Management's there. And they can't hide the fact of what we need accomplished or the problems that we had with fatigue. Fatigue is, when I was vice chairman at the SIG, doing the SIG notes, sending them to the attorneys, company was deleting every time we used the word fatigue in the SIG notes. So the feedback from our attorneys was, you can't you can't allow them to line out fatigue. Fatigue is a thing here. And it's not that way anymore, I think. I was very happy with what the FRMG accomplished over the past 2 years. I would say, you're not calming stuff out, they're starting to calm things out. I told them they need to publish the parameters, they're publishing the parameters. I asked that you walk through the hub. What's on in the hub? All these other presentations, let's FOQA data's up. They have all these nice things. I said, why don't you do something in the hub for fatigue? So going forward, they're going to have an office at the hub, company guys discussing fatigue. If you have a question about calling fatigue, if you have a question about what they're doing with fatigue, I asked them if they know what they're getting their into. They said yes, but I'm glad that they're putting the effort in that regard. Over the past 10 years, we've looked at lines, pairing design, line design, two problematic trends. One is departures per line. Over the past 10 years, the average pilot is adding one more departure per line over the past 10 years. So every pilot here has to fly one more trip into Memphis than they did 10 years ago. That's going to take a while to change that trend, but we need to get it going in the other direction. The other issue is the number of revisions. Over, let's say in 2013, there were 23,000 revisions. 2018, last year we had 42,000. It's almost doubled. That's a problem for the company. It's a problem for quality of life. We're trying to get some standbys back into the system that the company eliminated the last go around with cost-cutting measures. But that, on this chart, that trend goes through the roof. We need to turn it around and come back down the other way. We need less revisions. It costs company. The scheduling department doesn't want revisions. Pilots don't want revisions, but it's how they're actively managing the crew force a little bit more now than they ever have been, and we really need to turn that trend around. I can talk about 7576. I'll pitch out here in a minute. We have had some issues with 7576 and penalty lines, the ratio, how are the penalty lines being done, and the company is kind of screwed up is kind of a little harsh way to say what's happened, but it's good for pilots. Almost every 7.5 line now is a penalty line. That was part of their optimization, reorganization of flight credit hours of the past 2 months. One of the guys who works for me, J.D. Oliver, I'll throw his name out there. I'll throw his name on the bus. Very smart guy. He created the ratio idea. We wanted to make sure the company, when we had the 7576 LOA, that the company didn't overstaff the 75 and make them do all the reserve flying. So we have all the reserve pilots in the 75, we have 0 reserve pilots in the 76, and since it's a common pool, we'll just use the 75 guys. So we said, well, you have a ratio for pilots to credit hours, and it has to be roughly the same in both bid packs. They've been trying to shift some flying around, and I'll step back a little bit. Last year, Pat emailed me and said, why did they take the ratio out of the bid packs? I didn't know they did, but I was under the impression we're not keeping guys current in both airplanes anymore, so we're split, right? No, the LOA is still in effect. They were negotiating how to get out of the LOA. The ratios still apply, and they have applied since. So we got that ratio put back in the bid pack, and I believe it was March, might have been March of this year, with the number of credit hours being reduced in the 7.5, the ratio got way out of whack, and they had a number of penalty lines that they had to put in the bid pack. All the penalty lines are R24 lines, and they pay at wide body rates.